All right, you are welcome back. It is Monday's OTB AM. Nathan and Adrian with you this morning. Get your comments in on YouTube or on any of our social channels. It's not just myself and Adrian though, because Cathal, Mullaney and Kathleen McNamee are in studio as well. It's a packed house for the rest of the morning. How are you keeping, Kathleen?
Doing very well.
Congratulations are in order.
Thank you very much.
Best podcast, COYGIG. We knew this already.
Well,
but
obviously.
now you got the trophy to prove it.
Now we actually have a trophy to prove it. Yeah, and there was quite a lot of competition as well. I was surprised that we won, so I was kind of delighted with it.
You're sounding a little bit like some people sound, after the radio awards.
I swear
was it a long night?
It was a long night, but I actually did have a cold before. So it just all got 10 times worse.
It turned out the wine didn't cure the cold.
No,
I've had that issue
shockingly.
myself
This is actually the best I've sounded all weekend.
Right.
So I'm pretty impressed.
So this was the Digital Media Awards.
Yeah, Digital Media Awards, and we were up against Independent, lots of other kind of very strong brands. Louise Cooney, who's a very popular influencer, and yeah, COYGIG won. And new episode tomorrow morning where we will all be celebrating
glass
the results.
of champagne.
Yeah, if anyone wants to listen in, it's in all the usual spots that you can get the podcast. But yeah, no, it's really nice. I think we were very fortunate that we started this podcast a year ago, where everything that has happened since, qualifying for a World Cup, we've had a lot of great things to bounce off. So it's been really nice to be able to document that. And I hope, even in the future, it's going to be really nice to look back and be like, well, we were the ones that were there first. We documented that first ever World Cup. No one else was doing it at the same time. So I think it was a very deserved award, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll say all of us.
It's not just a one-woman band. Well done to Emma out there as well, who also had a good night.
Yep, she was there with me.
And to Karen.
Yeah.
Who isn't allowed to go to major award ceremonies, you were saying. You couldn't bring her along.
We just couldn't trust her.
Emma Byrne, who's just joined the team. Not a bad new signing.
No, not a bad one at all. The top Irish players.
Of all time.
Yeah.
And of course, Catherine Murphy, who doesn't like to be, likes to just wait behind the scenes.
Jet setting around the world. She was in Morocco, so I think she was celebrating from there.
Well, Cathal, what did you do over the weekend?
There's an all-star cast. It's all award winners, and then it's me. I don't know what I'm doing here.
What have you got for us?
You're from Sligo, Cathal, so you have that.
It's like this is two Sligo people on air together. This is quite
some way of
concerning.
recommending him there, Kathleen. I don't know what
Yeah. I just watched sport for the weekend. That's what I did.
So what did you watch? What did you...
I watched the Cup final yesterday, and I think Derry City are going to... I think they could definitely challenge Shamrock Rovers now. I thought they were excellent yesterday for long stages. The first goal was brilliant, and it seems like they've got a great thing going. And wouldn't it be great if James McClean came back to Derry City? It was floated by Rory Higgins. Yeah, it was floated by... No, he was only joking.
I think there have been a lot of rumours about it over the last few weeks, and Rory Higgins last week said he's just scored for... he scored from a corner actually at the weekend, James McClean. Just scoring for Wigan in the Championship, and he's in the Ireland squad. It's probably not going to happen. It'll definitely happen at some stage though.
But I wonder, would he be tempted when he was there yesterday, obviously, and saw the fanfare about it, and there's a good chance they could win the league title in the not too distant future.
If ever there was a player to do it,
just wonder,
while he's still somewhere near his peak, it'd be McClean.
Because Duff came back. I know Duff was at the very end of his career, but he played a few games for Shamrock Rovers, didn't he? So I mean, it'd be great for the League of Ireland if he did. And Derry have a really good squad. They have a really good squad, and they've got investment behind them now as well. So they've got a really good thing going. And the league is good. Rory Higgins and Damien Duff, two really good managers, high-profile managers. We spoke last week on the programme that Jim McGuinness is in the frame for the Finn Harps job, which would also raise the profile of the league as well. So,
well, in the grand tradition of GA, he'd have to bring somebody in alongside him, wouldn't he?
All about your backroom team.
He couldn't just take on. Exactly, yeah.
It's like bring in a former inter-county player and an All-Ireland winner. But I think it's been a great year for the League of Ireland.
Yeah, it has, and I think a title race, which if it had all gone down to that final night and Rovers against Derry, I think everybody would have been talking about it. But obviously Derry just couldn't maintain it and drew too many games in the end. But yeah, it does seem with the backing that they have, both of them have substantial backing, as much as you can spend. That's the one thing you can say. You have a billionaire owner, but how much can you realistically spend to bring players in? But it would be an unbelievable story. I can't see it with McClean. Maybe he comes back during the summer at the end of this season.
Yeah,
but I think. Does it put his Ireland spot at risk if he was to come back?
Potentially not as much as it would under another manager who hasn't connections to the League of Ireland like Stephen Kenny does.
Also, his Ireland career is in the winter. It's in the deep winter.
It is in the deep winter, but he's still, if not the starting left back, he's second choice. So,
I mean, what age is he?
Was he now about 31, 32?
Yeah.
Is that all? Jeez, if I would have.
I'm just throwing that out there. I should know these really. I'll do the old Google there. You know, James McClean. Wait for it.
I would
He's
say
now 33.
I would have said 33, 34. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Deep winter.
He looks well. In fairness, he keeps
there was a lot
himself
of
in very
conversation
good
about this
shape.
a few years ago where he was rumoured to come back, and there was a lot of chat about the Wags would have said, "Oh, like this, you know, should he even be starting would he even get a game in the League of Ireland?"
Oh, you mean Wags by supporters? I was like, why?
I was like, wives and girlfriends.
I was like, this is an unbelievable insight into the conversations that the Irish players' wives and girlfriends are like.
How would I be
doubting James McClean? Wow.
They're actually pulling all the strings. It's not Stephen Kenny at all.
That's right. Yeah.
This is a real story.
Revelation, yeah.
I want to see some sort of a sporting contest between James McClean and Denise O'Sullivan at some stage. The two of them would sicken you. McClean goes out and plays for Wigan on a Saturday, and then you flick on his Instagram on a Saturday night, and he's doing a boxing session at midnight. There's just this insatiable appetite to stay fit. Clearly just totally addicted to the gym. And Denise O'Sullivan's the exact same.
Right.
Every single day.
Like she's in her off season at the moment, and like her Instagram every day is just her doing like multiple different classes. She's like, oh, just done on like a 20k run. Now I'm off to the gym.
I do the same. I just don't put it on Instagram. You know, don't be showing off. Ireland are playing today.
Yes, playing.
So the countdown to Australia starts here.
Yeah, and it's an interesting tie. So they're playing Morocco at 5 o'clock Irish time, I think, and they played them on Friday in a behind closed doors match. There hasn't really been all that information about it that I've seen. They drew 2-2, but they were 2-0 up. So Morocco came back at them. It was a shadow squad. A lot of the regulars won't be involved. I expect it to be a different team tonight. Louise Quinn is making her 100th cap, so she's going to lead the team out as captain. But it is a good test in the lead up to the World Cup in the sense that, okay, Morocco were ranked quite low compared to us, but they did also beat Nigeria at AFCON this year in the semi-final on penalties. They're going to their first World Cup as well, so they're at the similar stage to us in that sense. And I heard the match on Friday was a particularly feisty affair, so it'll be interesting to see how we line up tonight. Does Vera Pauw go for a full strength squad, or does she just take some of the younger players in there and kind of give them a bit of a game? And as you said, it's all World Cup build.
Yeah, it is. We don't know fully what the build-up is going to look like. There's another international break early next year, and a lot of the teams play a tournament there, so Ireland may end up having 3 or 4 games. They will certainly want a couple of games at home, I would imagine, between now and the World Cup.
I thought it was kind of disappointing, and I don't know if this is because Ireland didn't... because before qualifying for the World Cup, Vera Pauw said that she wanted to take any money and spend it on the pre-camp before those qualifying matches and kind of put everything into that, and that's why we've ended up playing Morocco in a game that was quite quickly organised by the FAI. But the Arnold Clark Cup is on over in England, and I was looking at the lineup, and it's definitely the sort of competition that we could be involved in. Last year it was quite a big lineup. You had your Germanys, your Spain, big teams. This year it's Japan. I think it's one of the it's Latvia or someone that's playing, but the sort of teams that we definitely should be going for those sort of tournaments. I know we had the Pinnacle Cup, but the Arnold Clark Cup is kind of, you get to play against England, you get to play at big stadiums. So I understand that the FAI may not have even been in the bidding process for it, but if we can get ourselves into those sort of tournaments even past this year, I think it would be really good for Euro qualification or anything else. Although with the League of Nations happening, we may not want extra games.
We need to tip the cap to Louise Quinn, though. I mean, 100 caps tonight. It probably isn't the sort of profile of a game that you would want it to have fallen on, a big game at Tala or wherever it might be. Even at the World Cup would have been an amazing achievement. But she's been there. She's bridged, one of those players obviously that's bridged that gap to Liberty Hall, going back as far as Liberty Hall, and been a real there's not many players in the Emma Byrne category of people that have sort of been at the vanguard to that degree, but certainly one of those players, obviously captain her country, and will go down as one of the all-time greats, of course.
It's incredible when you look at that defence. Doing my research ahead of the Scotland game, and I think 16 years since she made her debut.
Yeah, 15
all 3 of them, it was 60 to be around for that long, all of them heading towards 100 caps. And I know she's spoken very honestly about the captaincy decision when it was given to Katie McCabe, and how she probably would have been first in line, everyone would have assumed. And look, in hindsight, it looks such a brilliant decision to give it, particularly because Louise Quinn is such a good professional, and actually you get another captain, because Louise Quinn is always just going to be
And
such
like
a
Katie
natural
McCabe
leader.
said that as well whenever she got the captaincy, that Louise Quinn was the person who helped her through that. And like that must have been really hard for Louise to know that she should probably be captain if you didn't have someone of Katie McCabe's level. And Katie McCabe turned to her being like, look, I'm quite young, I don't really know exactly how to do everything, and she was the person that led her through it.
So that game on this evening, we'll see what Vera Pauw decides to do. I think Vera Pauw is going to be on tomorrow morning show, actually. So we'll get the reaction from Vera Pauw then as well. But she'll obviously want to get the bit of balance of giving some game time to players who were probably on the periphery during qualification, while also maintaining the core of the team, so you can learn a lot about them. So making sure Katie McCabe starts and Denise O'Sullivan starts, and Denise O'Sullivan's out of season at the moment, so probably wants that game as well, because she always named big squads. Like, this is going to become a big talking point as we get closer. Like, the squad is 23. Vera Pauw has already been questioning of that the men's World Cup is 26, the women's is 23 players. Generally, she'd name a squad of about 28, so there's going to be a lot of very disappointed players.
Yeah, and this is something that I said after we qualified, because it's almost like we've like grown to love this team so much because they qualified us for the World Cup, but you've no idea like which of these players are actually going to be there in a year's time. You know, Katie McCabe, I don't even want to say it, she could get injured before the World Cup or something, and then like what are you doing? How are you replacing? And we already have the likes of Jessu and Ellen Malloy, who Vera Pauw very early days has said definitely won't be making the World Cup, and they won't be back in time for the World Cup next year. So that's also a great place for some of the younger players to come in and kind of say, well, look, I want to stake my claim.
Cathal, was a busy weekend in GEA. The Galacticos of Kilmacud Crokes just keep rolling on.
They do, hurling and football. They can do nothing wrong.
A super
club. A super club.
A
Super club.
great club.
Definition.
A club which is super.
Adrian even has a club card just for volunteering with the under fives.
The under fives. They're great. I mean, what they
Your voice got very high there.
But like they beat a team who beat them last year.
Yeah.
This is not like geez, I mean, of all the teams to be picking on, Nathan, the hurlers, it seems like a very soft.
Many
target.
players have you got in the academy down in Crokes now? Tell me that.
To be about, if everybody was to turn up, there'd be over 130. I'd say. But it's a big catchment area. It's not like what your bloody hell and exasperation comment is based on what, like that it's some sort of a Manchester City academy and they're paying all the parents. I mean, I wish
You're
they
the
were.
person who said it. No one else said it in the room.
Well, no,
so.
it's been said on this show before, not that long ago. But like, it's a ludicrous notion. It's a big catchment area. There's a load of kids. There's an unbelievable volunteer movement. I've been forced, like Cathal, on a weekly basis to come on here and defend the club. And
I feel it's very unfair when I'm going down with the under nines and Paul Griffin is on the sideline for Kilmacud. Like, that's just a completely unfair advantage to start with.
The very first training session that my eldest kid did down in Crokes last year, they were broken up into groups, and his first ever GA coach was Paul Griffin.
Wow.
It's like that's not bad.
Paul Griffin even from Kilmacud.
Yes.
His entire life.
Yeah.
His entire life.
Yeah.
I know, it's great. Great.
Tough gig.
I know you don't mean that.
Under five coaches.
It is a
For
tough
nine
gig.
coaches,
I went to Tommy Welch last year to ask him for a bit of advice because I knew he was doing some of the same sort of stuff with a roughly the same age group. So I was like, listen, Tommy, like, what sort of drills are you doing down in Kilkenny, and like, what's going on, because we need to be able to pour some of that stuff in over here. And he was like, yeah, listen, if you can keep their shoelaces tied for the session, you're
doing well.
done a good job. And he's absolutely right.
And then he just has a natural Tommy Walshness that, unfortunately, Adrian,
What are you
you're
saying?
always going
What are
to
you
struggle with. You help them tie their shoelaces and leave the coaching to somebody else.
Yeah, no, that's a good
But it was
point.
a big win for Crokes.
It was a significant win, wasn't it? Because they lost to Clough-Ballacolla last year. And a big win for St Mullins from Carlow, who beat St Aidan's from Wexford yesterday as well in the Leinster Club, and obviously Ballyhale hammered Castletown Gagan. And then in the football, 2 games in the Ulster Club quarterfinals went to penalties. Enniskillen and Gales beat Gown on Saturday night, and yesterday Cargan of Antrim beat Naomh Conaill from Donegal, which was a big shock. They got a late goal in normal time, 6 minutes into added time to get a draw after extra time, and then they won on penalties. So I think penalties is fine to settle a GA match, to be honest. I think it's bedded in now at this stage. I think so long as teams know well in advance, and they do,
Yeah.
I don't see any difficulty in
It
settling
just becomes
a
the
match on
norm.
penalties.
That Rory Canavan dummy.
So good.
Honestly, like, that was outrageous.
Yeah.
The first time I saw the clip, I was like, I wonder why this clip has gone viral. He's just about to kick the ball. He's got to a point in his movement where it's impossible to do anything else.
Yeah.
And he removes it at the last second. A thing of absolute beauty.
And the guy is totally committed to the block.
How you couldn't.
He said afterwards, he was like, "You win some, you lose some." I love that.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
What about David Clifford?
Yeah.
Scored 2-12 at the weekend for Fossa in the Kerry Junior Football Final. They beat Listry by 4-15 to 22 points. He's pretty much won everything this year. He's won the Allianz League, the Munster Championship, the All-Ireland Championship, the Kerry Senior Championship with East Kerry, and now the Premier Junior Championship with Fossa as well. They now go into the Munster Junior campaign.
Yeah. There's a good clip of Clifford going around as well. I don't know if you've seen it, of his goal in that match where he just glides by 3 or 4 defenders. It's just
he literally walks it into the goal.
Yeah, it's just
the clip I saw somebody run a bit of Jimmy McGee World Cup commentary over the top.
Different class. Different class.
And he loses the ball. He loses control of the ball, and then and he goes on. I was surprised he was sort of giving it the big one afterwards, wasn't he? He was.
Because in one way, like, it's obviously an unbelievable goal, and the point he scores at the end is to send it to extra time.
Yeah.
But, like, there's context to all of it. Like, David Clifford is just so good. Like, playing junior football, it is unfair.
It is unfair
on the opposition that you're going up against David Clifford.
Must be amazing.
Like, he's so good that, like, you'd be talking about that in 50 years' time about playing against David Clifford in a junior football final.
Yeah.
Average schleps.
He's recovered well, I'll tell you, from our chat at the All Stars.
This is an untold story.
An untold story.
Been told this morning.
Well, there's not that much to tell. I was leaving the All Stars. Adrian Barry had already done an Irish exit a little bit earlier at about 12:30, and I'll tell you what, the Cliffords were lucky. They ran into me just as I was leaving. Now they had the final with East Kerry on the Sunday, so you can take it that they didn't have a couple of drinks on them, whereas I may well. So we had we had a good chat.
Yeah.
We videoed the entire thing to send to Owen Sheehan.
Excellent.
Nobody has seen the video.
I woke up the next morning, looked at the video, and went, maybe I won't send this to Owen Sheehan.
He's so afraid about this video going viral that he hasn't even, like, in one-to-one capacity.
I wanted you in that moment to be like, and now we're going to roll the clip.
No, David Clifford was and Paddy, two lovely fellas, were very good with their time. There was definitely a moment about 30 seconds from the end where I could see them drifting off, going, don't really want to be associated with it.
So
for that reason alone,
half an hour into chatting to you,
I would just leave it. But as was pointed out, there was hurling All-Star winners looking to get their photo taken with David Clifford.
Yeah.
Like,
he's a megastar.
He's just got in the room. You see him over at the other side of the room. You're like, oh God, that guy's got something about him.
Yeah. Could be the greatest Gaelic footballer of all time.
Yeah, definitely.
What else we got from the weekend?
There was Padraig Harrington last night, won the Charles Schwab Cup Championship, but he fell short in the overall Charles Schwab Cup. So the season-ending tournament, he finished on 27 under par, which is actually a record. He won by 7 shots in Arizona. They ties the previous record. Jack Nicklaus also finished on 27 under in a tournament back in the early 1990s. But Stephen Alker, who Harrington played with last night, won the Schwab Cup, which is the Order of Merit on the Champions Tour. Harrington ended in second in the money list. Darren Clark was in a tie for 20th on 6 under. Harrington won 4.3 million this year in prize money between the 3 tours. He plays on the PGA, the DP and the Champions Tour, which is not bad at all.
So he's won 4 times in the last 5 months on the Seniors Tour. He was interesting when he was on after the US Senior Open with Joe, where I think Joe was like, oh, it's another major. He's like, nah. He would actually like, nah, it's not really. But he definitely seems to be enjoying the Champions Tour a lot more than he expected, because I thought he'd play sporadically, but that the desire to still be able to prove himself against the younger guys, that he'd go back and play DP Tour a lot more and play as many PGA Tour events, where actually he seems to have settled in the last, I think this is 5 weeks in a row he's played on the Champions Tour.
But he's such a competitor though, isn't he? I'd say he loves just being in competition and being able to compete at a level and winning. Yeah, absolutely.
He's like David Clifford in junior football.
Yeah, basically. But that's what he is at the moment. Like, he's what is he? He's just turned 51.
Yeah.
So like, he's the young kid, and he's going to have 3 or 4 years of this being easy to him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised. I was saying in Golf Weekly that, like, Bernard Langer won last week at, what was he, 66. Harrington has the mindset and the physique that you could easily see him playing and competing and winning till he's 65, 66
I think
on the Senior Tour.
He still thinks he can win a major on the.
I still think he's going to have, because he's in the Open for another 10 Open Championships. He'll have 1 year definitely where he'll be in the mix.
You feel that'll have to come in the next 2 or 3 years, though. There is a point
Links golf
physically.
is kind of different because you get a nice.
Tom Watson at 59, I think he wasn't he, when Stuart Sink won? Tom Watson.
Tom Watson was 59 when he didn't win. Yeah, no, that's good.
He had a 6-footer. He had a 6-footer to win, didn't he?
No, it's unfair.
But Harrington, he's such a likeable fellow with his and his game has improved. Like, I mean, wasn't he struggling with his wedges kind of in the latter stages of his career on the main tours? But he's transformed that. And 27 under par is a ridiculous score.
I'm sure we'll come back to this over the coming days. We were trying to get someone from the Leinster Council on. I'm sure everyone's seen the video at this stage of what happened at Parnell Park on Saturday, the Leinster Intermediate Club hurling quarter-final between Nave Barrowg and Allard de Balak. Depending on what angle you're looking from, none of it is good. There's a scrap on the pitch which turns into an almighty scrap in the stand. Somebody comes around with a hurl and starts whacking people on the back with it that I didn't see in the first video. There's an investigation starting. They're waiting for the referee's report this morning. The line people always use is it's shocking, but it's not in any way shocking because literally once a month this exact same thing happens. Like, what do you do? Do you just throw both clubs straight out of the competition, or if it was one club that was people from one club that were more fault, you just
like
throw
it's
them
getting to a
straight
tipping
out?
point, doesn't it? Like, it does feel like the chat up to this point has a lot been about, listen, this is not typical of GA games, this is just what happens. But it feels like that every video you see, there's another one, and like almost that at some point, maybe prior to that, people had felt like, well, we shouldn't. We've got might be taking a video of it, but we won't put it out because it's unfair on the people or the players or the GA. But now, actually, culturally, people are more in the habit of videoing them, more in the habit of publishing them. I think the more we see, the more we will see. And I do think that we need to stop saying this is untypical. Of course there are. Of course, it's like 1%.
Well, I think the point is,
less.
yeah, exactly. There's 1,000 games over the weekend. This happens in one of them.
We
But if
shouldn't
it's
be
one of them
using
every
that as a
weekend,
get-out clause for anything. It needs to be. I do think that something significant needs to happen, whether that's obviously individual punishments, and there's so many angles of that stuff at the weekend that I'm sure there's a lot of people with a lot of concern this morning about whether they'll be allowed to be involved in GA going forward. But at some point or another, you do need to take another step, which is probably in relation to the club or some sort of fines, or if it's not that, it's the holding back of funding. But it feels to me like we don't need to get too sort of pearl clutching about it, but there does need to be action taken over it. It just can't continue. Like, I mean, there's you know, like,
but it is a cultural thing that somehow somebody thinks I have a hurl in my hand in the stand,
and it's okay.
And when it kicks off, I'm going to go down and get involved in
so
this.
what the GA, the leadership that the GA need to show is that person needs to have in their mind, needs to be able to think straight away about the consequence of their action. That's the only way forward here. And like, you don't want to be all think about the kids, but like, I mean, there are kids and stuff at that game, and you're witnessing that, possibly in the middle of that. Like, I really think that they're, you know, obviously they will follow whatever protocol they have in place in relation to investigations and whatever else, but I would like to see often and regular communication from the GAA about this. And like you say, we have a request in, we haven't had anybody to come on and speak to us about it just yet. Hopefully that'll change as the week goes on, but I really feel like it's significant and important enough for deep and considered action to be taken over.
And listen, it's difficult in clubs, and I'm sure there's a lot of people involved in both clubs horrified by what they saw. But it does feel the only way to properly punish is to put it back on the clubs and say you are responsible for your supporters in the ground, and if they misbehave, the entire club is going to be punished.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, there's been a lot of stuff about referees and incidents with referees that has come out since the initial stuff came out earlier on in the summer. It seems to be nearly a weekly basis now. There's a story about a referee being nearly attacked by people at matches, or assaulted, or whatever has happened. And you know, it is a problem. It's a huge problem, and there needs to be swift and pretty decisive action, I would think, taken. And I think there is a clamour now across the association, given all the incidents that there have been over the last couple of months, that this really does need to be addressed. And you know, it's going to come to a stage where people are going to be afraid to take up officiating at these matches, and then we don't have matches.
Well, I think culturally people are now seeing those clips, and they want to set. So I'll be at a game this weekend, and I see something going on. I've got the footage. I'll put that out. So we'll be sitting here again next week, having the same conversation, or the week after. This isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah. So I think it's something definitely the GA has to look at. I think they've mentioned that referee recruitment is going to be one of the key pillars in the next 3 to 5 years. But I mean, if this stuff is happening on a weekly or every fortnight, I mean, it's going to be very difficult to recruit referees.
One other thing from the weekend, because I think we were both watching it yesterday evening, the Brazilian Grand Prix. A first victory for George Russell, but that wasn't the real story. It all came out afterwards. Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, so Max Verstappen, the world champion, his Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez. Wasn't a good week for Red Bull. They're sort of scrapping it out for, was it 6th and 7th at that stage? And Perez is trying to come second in the World Drivers' Championship, or third in the World Drivers' Championship. Verstappen's told to let him pass, team orders, and he refuses to do so.
What is with the Formula 1 drivers? There seems to be a really bad attitude or no team camaraderie anyway.
Well, the two of them used to get on really well, Perez and Verstappen, and obviously there's been a split. And the coverage, so I saw none of the race at all, but I feel as if I was hugely entertained, having come in just after it finished, watching the post-race coverage for about an hour. It was high sport entertainment as far as I'm concerned. But all the reporters tried to get to the bottom of both of them as to what had actually happened. What's the context of this? Oh, we're not going to say, but it was clear that because they had some footage of Chris Horner having a conversation with Verstappen about it, and it was clear that there was it was a tense a full and frank conversation, as Jim Gavin might say, and everybody came out after it and said, well, listen, if it happens again, I'll step aside. But it's a crazy idea that he stopped his teammate getting ahead of his rival ahead of the final race. So
that's what I think. Surely the team themselves want their two drivers to finish in the highest possible position, and Verstappen, well, maybe he's just so confident because he's winning that
Well, I'm looking at the comment on
Ronaldo
from earlier from somebody who said Ronaldo's one of the greats of the game. That comes with a certain mindset and attitude, and you could put that on Max Verstappen, that the reason he's a world champion is that he has that attitude. But
I think
also the reason...
I would argue differently as well, because he's done stuff for Verstappen.
Well, look back to the race last year at Abu Dhabi. The reason Max Verstappen was in a position to overtake Lewis Hamilton was because Perez drove so brilliantly to slow Hamilton.
Well, it's so childish. It made no difference to Verstappen at all. The Ronaldo comparison.
No, it was I'm the alpha here, and the comments afterwards were it's very difficult to know. It's a big job for Christian Horner to somehow get these two back over the next year. Because what Verstappen said was, I told you already last summer, you guys don't ask that again to me, okay? Are we clear about that? I gave my reasons and I stand by it. Perez said it shows who he really is. Now, in the interview you were talking about, Perez was sort of saying, I think maybe there was a communications breakdown or something, and Sky told him, no, there was no communications breakdown. Verstappen refused. He said, maybe you should ask him about that. I've nothing to say. After all I've done for him. It's a bit disappointing, to be honest. I've no idea. I'm really surprised. And then after that again, Verstappen was talking, and again didn't want to say a huge amount. I get my reasons why I didn't do it. I think everyone understood that. It was good that we finally all sat together. I think we're professional enough to move forwards.
He looked like a spoiled child. He looked like a scorned child afterwards. Verstappen, when he came out, he was like, I've done that thing, but we've spoken about it, and if it happens in Abu Dhabi, I will get out of the way. It's it is an interesting dynamic in terms of the player versus the power of the driver versus the power of the team. But geez, it was real, because they'd asked him 3 or 4 times over the radio to pull in.
Christian Horner said he's going for second places between Perez and Charles Leclerc, and he said if it's a straight fight, Max can help in any way, he will do so.
Just not today.
Really doesn't sound like
Let's
that.
see.
Anything else? We done?
Shinny.
Kathleen, award-winning COYGIG coming tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, yeah.
That the intro.
The award-winning COYGIG. Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Get a new sting, all that sort of stuff done.
Oh, well, sure, we need everyone else to have their moment to celebrate, since Emma and I were the only ones at the award on Friday.
More drinks.
Yeah. Speak to the head of content. I'm sure he'll sort you out for a night.
It's all fine. Thanks everyone who got in touch this morning. A lot of comments on Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm sure the lads will be touching on that on Off the Ball this evening from 7 o'clock with Joe.